On the topic of monetization, I always firstly try to bring the clarity between podcast as a business and podcast for a business. Your podcast as a business, as a brand, your entire focus is on audience growth, making it a podcast which is appealing to a larger audience. For business, you start seeing it as a marketing tool for your business, a content creation tool for your business, and then you use it as a media channel where you are promoting, in fact, shamelessly and selflessly promoting your products program
from one podcaster to the other.
Oh, thank you.
May the mic do it all. आपको ऐसे नहीं लग रहा कि रोशनी सी हो गई आज? So, ये मेरी दोस्त है लिंक्डइन से और सेम फर्टर्निटी से है, पॉडकास्टिंग फर्टर्निटी. सो मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है आज रोशनी बरोनिया को यहाँ पर बुलाते हुए. सो माय पॉडकास्ट गेस्ट फॉर टुडे इज रोशनी. And Roshni herself is a podcast host. She is a podcast content creator. She is helping people who are in this journey of creating their own podcasts with her venture called Done For You podcast. Done For You podcast. And she also had her podcast called Ace the Sales. And I also hear that there's something new coming, which Roshni will tell us. But she also spoke at TEDx. She also had a great stint in the sales world. And I think that's why you are so actively always speaking about sales, why it's important, or, you know, being in sales, because we are always selling everything, products, us, ourselves. So welcome, Roshni. Welcome to Second Act Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I'm also excited with you. So it's good to have you. And of course, I think we have been talking for a while now. And I think LinkedIn has become such a family that, you know, like people didn't know each other. And I was just thinking the other day, what if LinkedIn just switches off its tap?
And then, oh no, that would be a nightmare. And I guess we were talking the other day that everyone now knows everybody because somehow we are connected, especially if geographically we are close. It adds to that factor more. But irrespective of geographies, I think everyone knows everyone. Thanks to LinkedIn.
Especially on LinkedIn, yeah, that's true.
Yes.
That's true. So I'm so happy to get you here. So Roshni, what did I miss introducing you with? What is the new thing that you're doing?
Yes.
What all are you doing? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. And yes, it's a pleasure and honor to be on a podcast which has completed like 100 plus episodes. Yes. Because this is a very rare thing, especially for podcasts that are coming up in India.
Oh, wow.
And since I am now full on into the podcast industry, being a podcast launch strategist as well as owner of a production company, I am very closely associated, capturing and accelerating the rise of podcasts in India. Yes. And that is actually what is coming up new in terms of a podcast about podcasts, which we are calling Indian Podcasting Revolution. So that is the second podcast that I'm launching for myself. And episode 1 is out, and that's what I am excited about.
Yeah, and I think that's such a topic for people who are especially in the podcast journey or wanting to do their own podcast, because the voice podcast carries is going to be the next big thing. True. Right?
True.
And I think India is very nascent in it.
Yes.
And I'm so happy that I have done 100 podcasts. And like you said, you know, it's not that everybody does it.
True.
So I'm just so glad that I could.
True.
Of course, I'm very excited where this journey takes us. And to be honest, I was still thinking, should I continue or not?
Yes.
After doing 100, because
so
it does.
This is tables turning. What made you continue 100 episodes? Because consistency is key, like we were just talking ahead of this conversation.
Yeah, this is my podcast, I have to ask you questions, but okay. Okay, so what made me continue is because when I was reevaluating, I wanted to take the podcast to the next level. Whatever I was doing at 100, if I had the tenacity and the energy and the consistency to go ahead full throttle, or did I have to focus back on my workshops and retreats? That was the big question that was coming to my mind. And then, the kind of relationships I have built through this podcast, the kind of networking that has happened for me, I think it's magical.
Exactly.
It's nothing less than magical.
And see, that's what I love about this medium, because somewhere down the line, everyone finds their love for it. So like you found it to be a channel where you can build more relationships with people who probably are not in your immediate circle, but this becomes a tool for you to reach out to them and have an hour-long conversation with them. And how massive is that? So likewise, people tend to find their love for this medium, and that's what I also love about podcast, is that it allows you to experiment, explore, and just find your voice in it. What matters to you, how you want to use it, what you want to use it for.
But how did you start, getting attracted to this medium, or you thought that you will do something? How did that happen?
So for me also, it was just a simple intention of sharing what I have in terms of sales expertise. So in June 2020, when geographies closed down in order to open up businesses worldwide, my sales and consulting business also started expanding to US and different geographies. And then podcast became a tool for me to just share what I had with myself as a sales expert, as a business consultant, as an entrepreneur who's been into the space for 13 plus years. So somewhere down the line, I had learned a few lessons about running businesses. So I just wanted to share those things. But I wanted to have a content channel which is not very intimidating. I knew if I started doing videos, I will fall off the wagon few videos down the line. It won't be consistent. But audio as a medium was something which appeared to me as very democratized way of expressing myself, because I used to blog, and in writing also my styling was very spoken. So I was always speaking in my head when I was writing also.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So I thought, why don't I speak my content? So that's how podcast started. And in June 2020, Ace the Sales got launched as a channel where I am sharing my expertise, bringing other experts to help women entrepreneurs fall in love with selling. Like you introduced someone to talk about sales so passionately, because yes, I love sales, because it is for me just conversation, just a coffee conversation between two people. And so that's what I wanted to bring through my podcast, and thankfully it did well.
Very nice.
And that led me to many more things after that.
Beautiful. Because I've spent most of my life in sales as well. So I truly believe that sales is such a tool, again, where you build beautiful relationships. So I always enjoyed sales, and I think that's why probably we are also fascinated by this whole journey of podcasting, where we meet so many different people, and I think it just helps us to explore our fullest potential as well.
True.
Because every time somebody challenges you with something else, you have to then do all your research for people also whom you're talking about, right? And I think that really also challenges, right? So great. So Roshni, the Second Act podcast is intentionally done because I am experiencing my second act.
Yes.
And I started experiencing my second act when I actually left one. But my intention with this podcast is that you don't have to leave one to do the other. You don't have to really experience something when something shuts down.
True.
I think COVID has also taught us that there have to be multiple acts together. And what serves you at what time is something that, we can explore along the way. So does your life journey or it depict something similar? Or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, tell us
absolutely. And I think my journey, both professionally and personally, actually is an example of whatever you are saying, because looking at opportunities, finding your next act is something which has been consistent. So Done For You podcast is actually my third business. And to start from scratch every time is not very easy.
Yes.
But to find that courage and to find that that appetite of okay, let's do this kind of a thing doesn't come easily to many people. But that is something which I have realized is what charges me up. It gives me a kick. It drives me in a way, because because after a certain point of time, if things get monotonous and repetitive, it doesn't excite me enough. So I am actually looking for challenges and looking for the difficult things to do and moving ahead of the curve. And that's why probably I jump into things which people have not heard of ever. Because like when I started my first business, it was into personalized products for kids. And I started that in 2009.
Wow.
And at that point of time, hardly anyone was doing personalized products. And I had to every time educate and teach people as to what it is about. Then when I, in 2016, entered into sales consulting, people had no idea about what a sales coach does. Because people were more used to business consultants helping them with sales and revenue generation also. But not exclusively as a sales coach and a consultant who can talk about mindset also, who can talk about your limiting beliefs, who can identify how as an emotional being you operate in a sales conversation. So these were again things which I had to educate a lot about to my clients and target audience. And now that I'm into podcasting, like we said, that podcast still is very nascent and a green space in India. And again, through our podcast, Indian Podcasting Revolution, and all the activities that we do, we are educating a lot the people as to how you can leverage this medium for your business. So it's always something which drives me, that how you are moving ahead of the curve. So that's what
That's a beautiful journey, and may you discover many more acts along the way. Coming to podcast, because that's the most exciting thing I want to talk to you about again. So you work especially with women entrepreneurs, is that right?
So for the sales consulting work that I do, yes, of course, I work with women entrepreneurs, small business owners. But for podcast, it is
for everybody.
For everyone.
Okay.
Yes.
So what kind of people are approaching you, since you're consulting them for podcast?
Yes.
What kind of people approach you these days that I want to switch to my channel where my voice reaches?
Yes. That's a beautiful question, because while this medium and a tool is available for all, it is important for us to identify as to where we are coming from, who we are, and who we can serve the best. So I come from a coaching consulting space. I understand the importance of education and knowledge and personal growth, and that's what drives me. So every time I am leveling myself up, I am growing myself not only professionally but personally as well. So personal growth, self-awareness are very, very key to my growth and success. And I believe the role of a coach and a consultant comes into the picture for anyone who is looking for this personal growth or growth in every sphere of life, be it work, be it career, be it relationships, be it spirituality or whatever. So that's why, since I come from the same fraternity, I understand their challenges best. 15 plus years being an entrepreneur, I understand the challenges of an entrepreneur. Having done digital businesses all throughout, I understand what works, what does not work. Having burnt money so much into Facebook ads and all those things, I know now that podcast was a tool which can fulfill the needs of a small business owner, solopreneur, expert, entrepreneur, coaches, consultants like ourselves, who want to share their lived experience, who want to share their wisdom with the world. And that's how they will bring about a change into people's life who are looking for that advice at that point of time. Because that word of wisdom probably is going to help them make a decision in their work, life, or career, which is going to change their tomorrow. So those are the kind of people, the coaches, consultants, people who've had lived experiences to share their knowledge with the world.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think that I also follow a lot of people who carry a voice, where they are also bringing in their own personal experiences, yet they are the coaches. Yes. I think I'm also following a lot of coaches by default, because I feel this is exactly what they do in their personal and professional spaces, right? But there are so many podcasters now. I mean, when I go to Spotify and Apple, and if I try to say, okay, whom should I actually hear or listen to? I get confused. Yes. How do we make a choice? How do we know, okay, this is value for my time that I'm spending on a podcast?
True. See, so for me, how I fell in love with this space is that I am hungry for knowledge. Okay, I'm a seeker for knowledge, and as an entrepreneur, I was always looking for how can I be a better business owner, how I can run my business better, what are the strategies other startup founders are putting in place. And that's why I went and searched and looked for podcasts who are in this space of startups and business growth and business leaders actually sharing their life journey and biographies, kind of a thing. So it's more about what interests you, and then you go out and look for that. So probably in spite of the fact that true crime and horror is kind of a genre which does very well in podcasts, I never listen to it because that's not something that excites me. I find value for my time when I learn something, when there is a particular takeaway for me when I've heard that episode. So I just follow my interests. So that's how I find podcast, and I think that's what is applicable for all. And another is mood.
Yeah. But tell me, I mean, I'm sure that when you're advising people about the podcast, what do you tell them? What is the right time to hold somebody's attention? Is it so? When I started with 10 minutes, and then I thought 10 minutes was pretty good for me. But then the kind of feedback I started to get that it's too little time. We don't even get to know about the person and what he wants to speak about, what values he brings. So then slowly it got extended to 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 40 minutes, then now about an hour. So what do you advise? What is the right kind of time?
This is a very actually a common question that we get asked all the time. That what is the ideal duration of a podcast? Of course, it can be anything ranging from 10 minutes to 1 hour. If you see the podcast Seen and Unseen by Amit Verma, that goes up to 2 to 3 hours also.
Yeah, there are some podcasts up to 4 hours.
So my advice always is to people that don't go by what standards say or research says. Research says 27 to 30 minutes is the sweet spot. But I always say that it also depends on the format and the value you can create for your listener. If you feel that you are able to provide that kind of a knowledge and value to your listener in 10 minutes, go ahead and do a 10 minutes podcast. So one of our clients does that. But if you feel that you need a longer treatment to your content, you need to give specific 5 steps and then explain those 5 steps individually, or you are having a conversation like we are having and you need to cover many activities or many conversations, then have a longer format. It's always about your target audience finding the stickiness with your content, not the duration. So that's what I always say to them.
And if somebody has no idea of whether to have a conversation, what is the kind of topic, but they just feel that it's the right thing for them to do. I mean, what kind of advice again you will give to that person who just wants to do but doesn't know what to do?
So in fact, we do have those kind of clients all the time who actually have never been a podcast listener themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yet they want to start a podcast because probably that is the most in thing right now, or it is the trendiest thing to happen in content space. But my advice to them is that just look at what you can bring to the table for anyone who is a listener. Just think about one person and how you are going to add value to their life.
Yeah.
And then it's our job to then formulate a format around it.
Yeah.
So whether it is an interview, it's a solo, it's a conversation, it's a co-hosted podcast, it's a panel discussion format, whatever the format is, that will come later. But just think of one person, how you are going to add value to their life, and then the format will follow. It's not necessary that it's always have to be an interview based format, but yeah, many other are
So all the people who want to do a podcast, here it is what I hear from Roshni. First and foremost, your intention needs to be there, that you want your voice to be reaching to the right target audience. The value that you want to create has to be very clear. Why should somebody hear you, or what value are you adding to somebody's life? Third is they are spending a lot of valuable time listening to you. So is it doing justice to that time? Because that is a person who's actually taking out something that, is sacrificing something else. So are you really that person whom they should spend time on? So podcasting is going to go up. Anybody and everybody who, especially in the space of adding value to somebody's life, whether through coaching, self-development, any kind of practices that one can do to enhance their life abilities, I think this is a great space any which way. So don't stop yourself. Roshni is here. She is going to just help you to be the best podcaster ever.
Thank you.
So Roshni, my question to you is that more and more women are, of course, finding their voice.
Yes.
And this is a perfect platform as well.
True.
So another thing that is that while we are finding our voice, there is still enough of our own barriers that we are wanting to break, but we are not able to as women. Do you see the same trend when people, especially women, approach you?
Yes.
And why do you think that happens?
Yes. This is such a beautiful question, Archana, because when I work now, both with men and women in my podcasting business, I see women second guessing their voice, their content, their scripts a lot.
Oh, nice.
It doesn't happen with men. They are like very quick that, okay, this is I'm doing. Next day they will be out with their episode. But I find women are just second guessing the title of the podcast also, spending 2 weeks, 3 weeks just to finalize the title also.
Wow.
And it has got nothing to do with perfection or something that it's going out into the world, so it has to be a picture perfect kind of a thing. No, it is that we are not confident enough in putting ourselves out there. It is we second guessing our every act. So
yeah,
and it's kind of
very
intimidating.
beautiful, very beautiful.
It's kind of intimidating.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yeah, because I'm working with a lot of women as well. In fact, like we were talking before, that I did not start Second Act as a woman's space. But maybe because of the content that I'm putting out there, or maybe because I put my own stories out there so much, people feel, okay, I can talk to her because I feel the same. But like women do feel that, right? I belong to a corporate world but when I switched over to entrepreneurship, it was very hard. I thought I did not learn enough to carry it to be an entrepreneur. But if a man leaves his job today, I know that if my husband leaves his job today, he'll just switch over like that. He will. Yes. It took me a lot of time to believe in myself, to build that confidence that I'm speaking the right thing and I'm allowed to and I can, right? True. Allowed to by myself.
True. Exactly.
Not by anybody
I think
else.
The battles are more internal than external. Like for women, I feel For myself also, like when I started my first business, it wasn't as much of a fight that I had to put up with my family and everyone else, because their comfort zone also was getting shaken up.
Yeah.
But also my self-doubt. It took a long time for me to find courage, in fact, to start a business in the first place. So I delayed starting the business by approximately 1 year, because I thought that I am not very good at handling finances, and bookkeeping and managing money is a big part of running a business. So I cannot do that. And we always tend to hide behind these things of I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, and this is the only thing that will come in the way of my success. However, there are 10 other things that you need to do as a business owner, but this one thing that I'm not good at will stop me from reaching my goals. And that's what we do, and that's what we find like safe space in, hiding behind those imperfections. But
I think you said the right thing. Really, you said the right thing, and I think there's so much work to be done.
Yes.
And I'm glad people like you and me are there who have kind of reinvented ourselves.
Yes.
And so we are the voice of so many more who want to do it, right? So, of course, this brings me to this very sweet question. What's your second act, Roshni?
So again, a beautiful question, Archana, because my second act now is not just Done For You podcast and helping people start the podcast, but it's also about the journey I have traveled as an entrepreneur. So when I started my first business, the only intent was that I want to fulfill my dream, my entrepreneurial dream. I want to come out of a nutshell and fulfill whatever I had imagined myself to be. And that was the only intention. It was self-centric. But now that I work in Done For You podcast, it is more about helping my clients take their voice to the world. And their audience, the listeners, finding those wise words and making a decision today to create a better tomorrow for themselves. So it's totally for them. I am nowhere in the picture. And that's the transformation.
But you're
and
a
that's
catalyst.
The journey.
You're the catalyst.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's the journey I feel I have traveled from being an entrepreneur in 2009 to an entrepreneur in 2023. And that's my second act, where I am running a business purely for the service of my clients and how they achieve success in their business. So that's a huge transformation for me at a personal level, as well as to how I see my business and how I see myself in my business.
Yeah, so I was actually coming to that question where I wanted to ask you, what are your learnings along the way as Roshni, as your personal growth, personal development on all these years of working on different laterals and yourself?
Yes. So, so two things. First is that getting started is always the hardest part. And like I said earlier, that getting started or taking that risk is never the challenge for me now. But in 2009, it was the biggest challenge. It took me 1 year to just get comfortable with the fact that, okay, in spite of the fact that I know nothing about finance management for a business, I will go ahead and start it. So getting started is the hardest. True. But once you do that, then the second learning comes, that be okay with failures and things not working out as planned. Because in business especially, nothing goes as per the plan. So be okay with things not going according to the plan. So those are two very key learnings which have been consistent in whatever I've done over these 15 plus years as an entrepreneur. That getting started is hardest and being okay with your failures.
Great. I think that is something I resonate with also very much. That the first step is always the hardest one, and then everything flows, because then you actually take the courage to say, I dare, I will not give up, and I will make sure that I make the best of what I get. And of course, the tenacity to go through it.
Oh, yes.
And tenacity to fall and just to get up again is something that we all experience. So because you also work with women, I also work with women, what are the things that you want to tell the women audience today with your own personal journey?
So I want to say to women that it's true that all of us are looking for success in our business, recognition in one way or the another. But don't lose the sight of the fact that there are many girls and daughters close by in your home who are watching you.
Yeah.
So it's not important or it's not absolutely critical that you be on a magazine cover or a publication cover or win an award, then only you will become a role model. Just the fact that you've taken a step for yourself, you've decided to stand for your dreams and whatever you want to achieve in life, you are a role model to every daughter and girl that's there in your house and who's watching you as a role model. So just keep continuing and
Very
keep
nice.
doing whatever you do and just keep chasing your dreams, because someone out there is watching you and learning from you and getting inspired from you.
And I would just add to that, to saying, if you think you're a role model to yourself,
Yes.
you are.
Yes.
Right. And I
True.
think
True.
if you get inspired by your own self every day, I think that's what we need to get.
Absolutely.
And you're so right that, and I think the girls and people one generation just before us or
Yes.
2 generations before us are doing fantastic things.
Yes.
There's so much from these girls to learn anyway.
True.
So there's so much that they bring in. So I just get admired by their dare to say.
True.
Yeah.
I think we are learning so much with the new generation also, because they are so assertive and but I think they bring in a different kind of energy, and with women of our age, like 40 plus kind of a thing, we bring in a different kind of learning and energy to this entire conversation of how women are helping women or supporting them in their professional and personal journeys. So both have their own space.
So true. I want to ask you, this question must have come to you 20,000 times, and I still want to ask you on this podcast. That podcast as a medium right now is literally a free medium.
Yeah.
It is something that I post it and then somebody hears it. But obviously this is not going to stay. And we see that there is money behind podcasts now. There are brands who are putting money.
Yes.
Your own podcast can be picked up for something else. As long as, of course, it's relatable. So what are your tips to monetize your podcast?
Yes.
Or how do you get there?
Yes. So I always, on the topic of monetization, I always firstly try to bring the clarity between podcast as a business and podcast for a business. So when you start seeing your podcast as a business, as a brand, your entire focus is on audience growth, making it a podcast which is appealing to a larger audience. It is more of a mass product or a mass medium. And when you go into the vertical of podcast for business, you start seeing it as a marketing tool for your business, a content creation tool for your business. And then you use it as a media channel where you are promoting, in fact, shamelessly and selflessly promoting your products, program and service. Because you see, that is one more thing which entrepreneurs face a huge challenge with, that they do not self-promote. They don't like to be salesy. So if they try to sell a product, program or service, they feel, oh, I'm looking very aggressive, I'm looking salesy, and I don't want to do that. But since podcast is a mass media channel, you are free and you can very well promote your products, program and service. So those are two ways of seeing podcast as a tool. It totally depends on you as to how you want to use it, how you want to leverage it. In the first way, where you are seeing it podcast as a business, you need to focus on audience growth. And for podcast as a business, you actually need to converge and niche down, and then focus on a very, very well curated and articulated target profile, the audience profile, listener profile. So those are two ways, strategically different ways of looking at it. And monetization definitely will happen, but But of course, in podcasting space, it happens a little differently than what people expect from YouTube or any such platform. But nonetheless, it's there and it is going to happen.
Yes. So can I be salesy here, please?
Oh, definitely. Okay. By all means,
So
I love that.
Getting inspired from Roshni, I want to tell you that this is a beautiful studio that we have created to record podcasts. And when Roshni will do all the curation of your podcast, we will be loving it if you come and record it live here. And definitely this can be used for multiple things, not only the podcast studio, but for your photo shoots, for any kind of content creation, for any kind of reels, like you would have seen me in reels.
Yes, and it's very rare that you get such beautiful backgrounds. So please.
So see, it's good sales pitch. Thank you, Roshni. I took this opportunity not to miss. Yes. But this is in Gurgaon, by the way. So of course, people who are very, very much in Delhi, Gurgaon, you're welcome.
Yes.
One thing we miss and we often talk about is the podcast community.
Yes.
And I think when there's community for everything, I think it's great to start the community with you.
Yes.
And we should speak about that as well.
Oh, definitely.
So why don't you speak about it?
Yes, yes. So this is again a very new thing that we are working upon with like Archana also being a part of it, that podcasters in India need that support and the knowledge, because there is so little we know about how podcast will work for your objectives, your business, or how will you monetize it and all of these things. And more than that, they need a support group for their podcasting journey to stay consistent.
Absolutely.
Like, no one can stay as long as Archana has been in this space. So it's not easy, and it's important to find your like-minded crowd to find that consistency and support. So that is definitely what we are building here. And it will be an invite-only community, very well curated, because we are able to add value to each other's podcasting journey. There will be opportunities to do collaboration, podcast swaps, trailer swaps, guesting, and so many other things. But
stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Okay, one thing is that you talk about consistency. Why do people fall off?
I think it's more of a discipline issue. See, the way I've heard somewhere that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Right?
I wrote a LinkedIn post on it.
Yeah. So I think that is what gets extended to podcast also. And it's not just that it's difficult to stay consistent with podcast. No, even if you decide to do one post on LinkedIn every day, if consistency is a challenge for you, you will find that also very difficult, right?
Yeah.
So consistency is more an outcome of indiscipline in your way of working. So if you are able to find discipline in how you work as a professional, then you will be able to find consistency with podcast. And another thing is to find support and systems. In any kind of work that you do.
I think people get just intimidated.
They get overwhelmed.
कौन से channel पे होगा? Anchor पे कैसे जाएंगे?
Because they don't know enough.
Yeah.
Because they don't know enough. So that's why the overwhelm is there. But I think if you have systems, support like Done For You podcast, so that overwhelm gets eliminated to a large extent, and then that helps you to stay consistent with your, at least the zone of genius that you are in, which is creating your content, serving your target audience, and creating value in their life. So
Another thing which a lot of people ask me, and I want to ask you today, how do you actually get a lot of people on your podcast as an invite? And especially the influential people.
No.
What's the secret behind it?
So I think what has worked for you, bring Imtiaz Ali in the very first few episodes. So if you have a few celebrity people on your show, right up in the start, so it does build up the persona and the aspirational value of the podcast. So definitely that is one way of building the podcast, but like my podcast Ace the Sales was built on a very different strategy. So for me, again, it was a tool to network with fellow coaches, consultants, and people with whom I can do business. Nice. And how it opened up international borders for me. So it became a foot in the door strategy for me. So it was not at all about bringing celebrities on the show. It was more about bringing people like myself, coaches and consultants, small business owners, who are very relatable to my audience also. So that was the focus of the podcast. So it ultimately depends on how you want to curate it, and then you can always reach out to your network, LinkedIn of course, and then there are platforms like matchmaker.fm, podcastguest.com, and the community we are trying to build here, where you can find those people who can come onto your show as a guest. And always look out for your industry experts. So everyone knows who the well-known people or the people who are doing great work in their industry are. Just bring them on and talk about those specific things. People are always happy to share their knowledge. So that's what I feel. I don't think podcast, like finding good people for your podcast, is as much a challenge if you are very focused and intentional about what your podcast is for and who is it for, and then you will find many people. So yeah,
which is true. And I want to share this one bit from me, that what has helped me is just being so authentic. When I have just written to them, and this will help the podcast, the listeners, to discover something they have not discovered before. Maybe a life story of somebody can really impact somebody else's life. Exactly. And I think this is the biggest thing, when everybody goes through their own lifespan, their own falls, their own vulnerabilities. And I'm really, seeing this trend after COVID, that people are willing to share.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing, that people are willing to say, hey, I really cried. I really didn't do well. It was the downtime for me.
Yes.
And I think that is something which has come out the best during COVID times. That people are saying it's okay. We don't have to be picture perfect all the time.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I think that really helped. I think you're doing great work, Roshni. I'm very happy to meet you. And you're a very good person, more than anything else. So it's really a pleasure to have you, and I mean it. I normally don't say it on my podcast like this, but I do. Thank you for really spending time, coming all the way, finding this place, spending time to look for it, getting lost.
Oh yes, Google also did help today in finding this place.
So it's a lot of effort, and I really acknowledge that effort, and thank you from my heart.
Thank you.
But we can't go without rapid fire questions. So yes, if Roshni had to describe herself in 3 words, what is that?
Dreamer, doer, and recovering perfectionist.
Oh yeah. Okay, so for the sake of people, what is recovering perfectionist? What a term.
So like we were chatting earlier, that at one point of time I was crazy for things to be perfect. Like at my home also, if a particular object is kept at one place, it cannot move from that place. Otherwise, it will get lost. If in my first business, my tailors used to go crazy because if a stitch has to be made at 1/4 millimeter, it has to be there. My graphic designer goes nuts because the text alignment is something which I keep chasing her for. So that is something which actually I realized after a point of time gets in the way of getting things done. And then I realized it's better to be functional than perfect. And that's how recovering perfectionist. So sometimes I have to hold myself, okay, no, I'm not going to tell about the text alignment now, but yeah. So that's why.
Okay, is that the term that people know, recovering perfectionist?
I don't know.
It's a term by you. Okay. So, what is the next step coming for Roshni?
I am really excited about the Indian Podcasting Revolution podcast that we are coming out with, because the intention behind it is to capture and accelerate the rise of podcast in India, and it has so many different formats in it. We are interviewing established podcasters.
Wow.
We are auditing noteworthy podcasts. We are bringing in the global perspective of experts from all across the world so that people can learn from them, because like we know, the US industry is always 3 to 4 years ahead of us, right?
Yes.
So it's good to bring in those perspectives that will accelerate the rise of podcasts in India. So that's what we are very bullish about and very excited about.
So nice.
So that's happening.
Great. So one last thing before you go, what do you want to say?
I just want to say that that two things. Of course, the community that we mentioned. So if any podcasters are listening to it, feel free to join that. But apart from that, I feel that it's important for everyone to realize what their message to the world is, and then share it with the world, because everyone has got a story. Everyone has got the power and the ability to inspire someone, to make a difference in the life of someone out there. So don't lose out on those opportunities. Your story, your voice is as important as mine. So just share it.
Beautiful. So from one podcaster to the other.
Oh, thank you.
May the mic do it all. All right, so see you everyone. I hope that this was informative for you more than anything else. Roshni shared a lot of her learnings, and of course she's doing great work for the podcast community. And like I said, if you need a space, we have it.
Yes.
And we're building a community together. So we will see you there soon then. Bye-bye. Bye. So this is yet another incredible episode of Discover Your Second Act. I'm hoping that as me, you are feeling very, very excited, enthusiastic, and learned about all the nuggets that came out. So follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and of course, until next time, keep discovering your second act.